I'm back. I'll be I'm reading the Bible using the reading reading the we I am reading the Bible using the reading plan from the Daily Audio Bible app. Uh, okay, so I will be reading for January 12th, 2021. Genesis chapter 27, chapter Genesis chapter 26, chapter I don't know. I'll be reading from I'll be reading Genesis chapter 26 verse 17 to Genesis chapter 27 verse 46. Okay, Genesis chapter 26. Chapter Genesis chapter cha, Genesis chapter 26 verse 17. Verse 17. So Isaac moved away from there and encamped in the valley of Gerar, where he settled. Where he settled. As you, common sense isn't all that common. In fact, the common thread in many decisions is that they don't make sense. As life was filled with choices he must have regretted bitterly. He appears to have been a person who found it hard to consider consequences, reacting to the need of the moment without realizing what he was what he was what he was giving up to meet that need. Trading his birthright for a bowl of stew was the clearest example of this weakness. He also chose wives in direct opposition to his parents' wishes. He learned the hard way. What what are you willing to trade for the things you want? Do you find yourself at times willing to navigate anything for what you feel you need now? Do your family's spouse integrity, body or soul get included in these deals? Do you sometimes feel that the important parts of life escaped while you were grabbing for something else? If so, your initial response, like issues, may be deep anger in itself. That isn't wrong. In itself, that isn't wrong. As long as you direct the energy of that anger toward a solution and not toward yourself or others as the cause of the problem. Your greatest need is to find a focal point other than what I need now. The only worthy focal point is God. A relationship with Him will not only give an ultimate purpose to your life, it will also be a daily guideline for living. Meet Him in the pages of the Bible. Strengths and accomplishments. Ancestor of the EDOMITES, known for his archery skill. Able, able to forgive, able to forgive after explosive anger, weaknesses and mistakes. when faced with important decisions, tended to choose according to the immediate need rather than the long range effect, angered his parents by poor marriage choices. Lessons from his life. God allows certain events in our lives to accomplish his overall purposes, but we are still responsible for our actions. Consequences are important to consider. It is possible to have great anger and yet not sin. Vital statistics where Canaan, occupation, skillful hunter, relatives, parents, Isaac and Rebekah, brother Jacob, wives, Judith, Basmath, and Mahalath. Key verses. Make every effort to live in peace with everyone and two. Be holy. Without holiness, no one will see the Lord. See to it that no one falls short of the grace of God, and that no bitter root grows up to cause trouble and defile many. See that no one is sexually immoral or is godless, like as you, who for a single meal sold his inheritance rights as the oldest son. Afterward, as you know, when he wanted to inherit this blessing, he was rejected, even though he sought the blessing with tears. He could not change what he had done. Hebrews chapter 12 verses 14 to 17. Ezra's story is told in Genesis chapter 25 and 26. He is also mentioned in Malachi chapter 1 verses 2 and 3, Romans chapter 9 verse 13, Hebrews chapter 12 verses 16 and 17. Isaac reopened the wells that had been dug in the time of his father Abraham, which the Philistines had stopped up after Abraham died, and he gave them the same names his father had given them. Isaac's servants dug in the valley and discovered a well of fresh water there. But the herders of Gerar quarreled with those of Isaac and said, the water is ours. So he named the well Esek because they disputed with him. Then they dug another well, but they quarreled over that one also. So he named it Sitnah. He moved on from there and dug another well, and no one called over it. He named it Rehoboth, saying, now the Lord has given us room, and we will flourish in the land. From there he went up to Beersheba. That night the Lord appeared to him and said, I am the God of your father Abraham. Do not be afraid, for I am with you. I will bless you and will increase the number of your descendants for the sake of my servant Abraham. Isaac built an altar there and called on the name of the Lord. There he pitched his tent, and there his servants dug a well. Meanwhile, Abimelech had come to him from Gerar with Ahuzzath, his personal advisor, and Phicol, the commander of his forces. Isaac asked them, Why have you come to me, since you were hostile to me and sent me away? They answered, We saw clearly that the Lord was with you. So he said, There ought to be a sworn agreement between us and you. Let us make a treaty with you, that you will do us no harm, just as we did not harm you, but always treated you well, and sent you away peacefully. And now you are blessed by the Lord. Isaac that made a feast for them, and they ate and drank early. The next morning the men swore an oath to each other. Then Isaac sent them on their way, and they went away peacefully. That day Isaac's servants came and told him about the well they had dug. They said, We have found water. He called it Shibah, and to this day the name of the town has been Beersheba. Jacob. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are among the most significant people in the Old Testament. It is important to realize that this significance is not based upon their personal characters, but upon the character of God. They were all men who earned the grudging respect and even fear of their peers. They were wealthy and powerful, and yet each was capable of lying, deceit, and selfishness. They were not the perfect heroes we might have expected. Instead, they were just like us, trying to please God, but often failing short. Jacob was the third link in God's plan to start a nation from Abraham. The success of that plan was more often was more often in spite of than because of Jacob's life. Before Jacob was born, God promised that his plan would be worked out through Jacob, and not his twin brother Esau. Although Jacob's methods were not always respectable, his skill, determination, and patience have to be admired. As we follow him from birth to death, we are able to see God's work. Jacob's life had 4 stages, each marked by a personal encounter with God. In the first stage, Jacob lived up to his name, which means he grabs the heel figuratively. He deceased. He grabbed Esau's heel at birth, and by the time he fled from home, he had also grabbed his brother's birthright and blessing. During his flight, God first appeared to him. Not only did God confirm to Jacob his blessing, but he awakened in Jacob a personal knowledge of himself. In the second stage, Jacob experienced life from the other side, being manipulated and deceived by Laban. But there is a curious change. The Jacob of stage 1 would simply have left Laban, whereas the Jacob of stage 2, after deciding to leave, waited 6 years for God's permission. In the third stage, Jacob was in a new role as grabber, this time by the Jordan River. He grabbed on to God and wouldn't let go. He realized his dependence on the God on the God who had continued to bless him. His relationship to God became essential to his life, and his name was changed to Israel. He struggles with God. Jacob's last stage of life was to be grabbed. God achieved a firm hold on him. In responding to Joseph's invitation to come to Egypt, Jacob was clearly unwilling to make a move. Jacob was clearly unwilling to make a move without God's approval. Can you think of times when God has made himself known to you? Do you allow yourself to meet him as you study his word? What difference have these experiences made in your life? Are you more like the young Jacob, forcing God to track you down in the desert of your own plans and mistakes? Or are you more like the Jacob who placed his desires and plans before God for his approval before taking any action? Strengths and accomplishments. Father of the 12 tribes of Israel. Third in the ABRAHAMIC line of God's plan. Determined minded, willing to work long and hard for what he wanted. Good businessman. Weaknesses and mistakes. When faced with conflict, relied on his own resources rather than going to God for help. Tended to accumulate wealth for its own sake. Lessons from his life. Security does not lie in the accumulation of goods. All human intentions and actions, for good or evil, are woven by God into his ongoing plan. Vital statistics where Canaan, occupation, shepherd, livestock owner, relatives, parents Isaac and Rebekah, brother Esau, father in law Laban, wives Rachel and Leah, 12 sons and one daughter are mentioned in the Bible. Key verse: I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. Genesis chapter 28 verse 15. Jacob's story is told in Genesis chapter 25 to chapter 50. He is also mentioned in Hosea chapter 12 verses 2 to 5, Matthew chapter 1 and chapter 2, and Matthew chapter 22 verse 32, Acts chapter 3 verse 13, Acts chapter 7 verse 46, Romans chapter 9 verses 11 to 13 Romans chapter 11 verse 26, Hebrews chapter 11 verse 9, verses 20 and 21. Jacob gets Esau's blessing. When Esau was 40 years old, he married. When Esau was 40 years old, he married Judith, daughter of Beeri, the Hittite, and also Basmath, daughter of Elon the Hittite. They were also grieved to Isaac and Rebekah. Genesis chapter 27. When Isaac was old, and his eyes were so weak that he could no longer see, he called for Esau, his oldest son, and said to him, My son, here I am. He answered. Isaac said, I am now an old man and don't know the day of my death. Now then, get your equipment, your quiver and bow, and go out to the open country to hunt some wild game for me. Prepare me the kind of tasty food I like, and bring it to me to eat, so that I may give you my blessing before I die. Now Rebekah was listening as Isaac spoke to his son Esau. When Esau left for the open country to hunt game and bring it back, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, Look, I overheard your father say to your brother Esau, Bring me some game and prepare me some tasty food to eat, so that I may give you my blessing in the presence of the Lord before I die. Now, my son, listen carefully and do what I tell you. Go out to the flock and bring me 2 choice young goats, so I can prepare some tasty food for your father just the way he likes it. Then take it to your father to eat, so that he may give you his blessing before he dies. Jacob said to Rebekah, his mother, But my brother Esau is a hairy man, wild. I had smooth skin. What if my father touches me? I would appear to be tricking him, and would bring down a curse on myself rather than a blessing. His mother said to him, My son, let the curse fall on me. Just do what I say, go and get them for me. So he went and got them and brought them to his mother, and she prepared some tasty food just the way his father liked it. Then Rebekah took the best clothes of Esau, her oldest son, which she had in the house, and put them on her younger son Jacob. She also covered his hands and the smooth part of his neck with the goat skins. Then she handed to her son Jacob the tasty food and the bread she had made. He went to his father and said, My father. Yes, my son, he answered. Who is it? Jacob said to his father, I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Please sit up and eat some of my game, so that you may give me your blessing. Isaac asked his son, How did you find it so quickly? My son, the Lord, your God, gave me success, he replied. Then Isaac said to Jacob, Come near, so I can touch you, my son, to know whether you really are my son Esau or not. Jacob went close to his father Isaac, who touched him, and said, The voice is the voice of Jacob, or the hands of Esau. He did not recognize him, for his hands were hairy like those of his brother Esau. So he proceeded to bless him. Are you really my son Esau? He asked. I am, he replied. Then he said, My son, bring me some of your gain to eat, so that I may give you my blessing. Jacob brought it to him, and he ate. And he brought some wine, and he drank. Then his father Isaac said to him, Come here, my son, and kiss me. So he went to him and kissed him. When Isaac caught the smell of his clothes, he blessed him and said, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed. May God give you heaven's dew and all richness, and abundance of grain and new wine. May nations serve you, and people bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and those who bless you be blessed. Be blessed. After Isaac finished blessing him, and Jacob had scarcely left his father's presence, his brother Esau came in from hunting. He too prepared some tasty food and brought it to his father. Then he said to him, "My father, please sit up and eat some of my game, so that you may give me your blessing." His father Isaac asked him, "Who are you?" "I am your son," he answered, "your firstborn Esau." Isaac? Isaac trembled violently and said, "Who was it then that hunted game and brought it to me? I ate it just before you came, and I bless him, and indeed he will be blessed." When Esau heard his father's words, he burst out with a loud and bitter cry, and said to his father, "Bless me, me too, my father." But he said, "Your brother came deceitfully and took your blessing." Esau said, "Isn't he widely named Jacob? This is the second time he has taken advantage of me. He took my birthright, and now he's taken my blessing." Then he asked, "Haven't you reserved any blessing for me?" Isaac answered Esau, I have made him lord over you, and have made all his relatives his servants, and I have sustained him with grain and new wine. So what can I possibly do for you, my son?" As you said to his father, "Do you have only one blessing, my father? Bless me too, my father." Then as you wept aloud, his father Isaac answered him, "Your dwelling will be away from the earth's richness, away from the dew of heaven above. You will live by the sword, and you will serve your brother. But when you grow restless, you will throw his yoke from off your neck. As you held a grudge against Jacob, because of the blessing his father had given him, he said to himself, "The days of mourning for my father are near. Then I will kill my brother Jacob." When Rebekah was told what her older son Esau had said, she sent for her younger son Jacob and said to him, "Your brother Esau is planning to avenge himself by killing you. Now then, my son, do what I say. Flee at once to my brother Laban and Haran. Stay with him for a while until your brother's fury subsides. When your brother is no longer angry with you and forgets what you did to him, I will send word for you to come back from there. Why should I lose both of you in one day?" Then Rebekah said to Isaac, "I am disgusted with living because of these Hittite women. If Jacob takes a wife from among the women of this land, from Hittite women like these, my life will not be worth living. Be worth living." Matthew chapter 9 verses 1 to 17. Matthew chapter 9. Matthew. More than any other disciple, Matthew had a clear idea of how Matthew had a clear idea of how much it would cost to follow Jesus. Yet he did not hesitate a moment. When he left his tax collecting booth, he guaranteed himself unemployment for several of the other disciples. There was always fishing to return to, but for Matthew there was no turning back. Two changes happened to Matthew when he decided to follow Jesus first. First, Jesus gave him a new life. He not only belonged to a new group, he belonged to the Son of God. He was Son of God. He was not just accepting a different way of life. He was now an accepted person for a despised tax collector. That change must have been wonderful. Second, Jesus gave Matthew a new purpose for his skills. When he followed Jesus, the only tool from his past job that he carried with him was his pen. From the beginning, God had made him a record keeper. Jesus' call eventually allowed him to put his skills to their finest work. Matthew was a keen observer, and he undoubtedly recorded what he saw going on around him. The gospel that bears his name came as a result. Matthew's experience points out that each of us from the beginning is one of God's works in progress. Much of what God has for us, He gives long before we are able to consciously respond to Him. He trusts us with skills and abilities ahead of schedule. He has made each of us capable of being a servant. When we trust Him with what He has given us, we begin a life of real adventure. Matthew couldn't have known that God would use the very skills he had sharpened as a tax collector to record the greatest story ever told. And God has no less meaningful a purpose for each one of us. Have you recognized Jesus saying to you, follow me? What has been your response? Strengths and accomplishments. Which one of Jesus' 12 disciples responded immediately to Jesus' call? Invited many friends to his home to meet Jesus. Compiled the Gospel of Matthew. Clarified for his Jewish audience. Jesus fulfillment of Old Testament prophecies. Lessons from his life. Jesus consistently accepted people from every level of society. Matthew was given a new life and his God-given skills of record keeping and attention to detail were given new purpose. Having been accepted by Jesus, Matthew immediately tried to bring others into contact with Jesus. Vital statistics where comporium, occupation, tax collector, disciple of Jesus, relative, Father, Alphaeus. Contemporaries, Jesus, Pilate, Howard, Antipas, other disciples. Key verse. As as Jesus went on from there, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at the tax collector's booth. Follow me, he told him. And Matthew got up and followed him. Matthew chapter 9, verse 9. Matthew's story is told in the Gospels. He is also mentioned in Acts chapter 1, verse 13. Verse 13. Jesus heals a paralyzed man. Mark chapter 2 verses 1 to 12. Luke chapter 5 verses 17 to 26. To 26. Jesus stepped into a boat, crossed over, and came to his own town. Some men brought to him a paralyzed man lying on a mat. When Jesus saw their faith, he said to the man, "Take heart, son, your sins are forgiven." At this, some of the teachers of the law said to themselves, "This fellow is blaspheming." Knowing their thoughts, Jesus said, Why do you entertain evil thoughts in your hearts? Which is easier, to say your sins are forgiven, or to say get up and walk? But I want you to know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins. So he said to the paralyzed man, "Get up, take your mat, and go home." Then the man got up and went home. When the crowd saw this, they were filled with awe, and they praised God, who had given such authority to man. Jesus eats with sinners at Matthew's house. Mark chapter 2, verses 13 to 17. Luke chapter 5, verses 27 to 32. As Jesus went on from there, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at the tax collector's booth. "Follow me," he told him. And Matthew got up and followed him. While Jesus was having dinner at Matthew's house, many tax collectors and sinners came and ate with him and his disciples. When the Pharisees saw this, they asked his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" On hearing this, Jesus said, "It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. But go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice, for I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners. Religious leaders asked Jesus about fasting. Mark chapter 2, verses 18 to 22. Luke chapter 5, verses 33 to 39. Then John's disciples came and asked him, "How is it that we and the Pharisees fast often, but your disciples do not fast?" Jesus answered, "How can the guests of the bridegroom mourn while he is with them? The time will come when the bridegroom will be taken from them. Then they will fast. No one sews a patch of unsworn cloth on an old garment, for the patch will pull away from the garment, making the tear worse. Neither do people pour new wine into old wineskins. If they do, the skins will burst, the wine will run out, and the wineskins will be ruined. No, they pour new wine into new wineskins, and both are preserved. Psalm chapter 10, verses 16 to 18. Psalm chapter 10. Psalm chapter 10, verses 16 to 18. 16. The Lord is king forever and ever. The nations will perish from his land. You Lord, hear them, hear the desire of the afflicted. You encourage them, and you listen to their cry, defending the fatherless and the oppressed, so that mere earthly mortals will never again strike terror. Proverbs chapter 3, verses 9 and 10. Proverbs chapter 3. Chapter 3, verses 9 and 10. 9 and 10. Honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of all your crops. Then your barns will be filled to overflowing, and your vats will brim over with new wine. Okay, that's all. Bye for now.